Hello and welcome to DesignOS. Color is the easiest and most important aspect of engaging the user with the product in design. Most people believe that choosing colors of the UI depends mostly on the taste and the sense of beauty of the designer. The color selection process, however, is more complicated than it appears and plays an important role in the design. You can set a mood with colors, draw attention, or make a statement. To energize or cool down, you can use a color. You can create an atmosphere of elegance, warmth, or tranquility by choosing the right color scheme, or you can convey an image of playful youthfulness. The choice of color is based on some color psychology and theory. So let's begin with the psychology of color. The color preference between men and women is different. It also varies with age groups. According to a study, there is a significant difference in the choice of color between genders. The study was carried out for the colors that were most favorable and less favorable. And as we can see in the image, the color blue is significantly favored by both men and women, and brown is the least liked color. Let's understand this with an example. So far in this series, we have been creating a payments app, and we can use that app to transfer money between our contacts. So let's go ahead and change the primary color of this app to a brown. The result will look something like this. We can clearly see that the design is good enough. We also know that the interaction design is good enough because we went ahead and created an interaction design from scratch using the interaction framework. But due to the color selection, this app may not work. So what can we do to improve it? Well, we'll take a look at that a little bit later on in this video. Now we can try to talk about the meaning of color. Designers need to understand what colors mean and what reaction they might bring out of a user. Designers also need to use colors to convey the right tone, message, and make the user do the expected action. Each color has its own influence on the human mind, and knowledge of possible reactions can assist designers in transferring the right message. So we can take a look at color theory. In interface design, there are a lot of colors to use. The first thing that comes to mind when you talk about colors is a color wheel. You may have seen this as a kid in your primary school. A color wheel or color circle is an abstract, illustrative organization of color hues around a circle. It shows the relationship between primary colors, secondary colors, tertiary colors, and more. Now, another important topic is how colors can be combined. There are several ways to combine colors, but warm colors and cool colors must be balanced. So we can go ahead and go to a website called color.adobe.com. And as you enter this website, you'll see the color wheel up front and you have 5 colors in front of you. On the left side, there are quite a few options and we'll go ahead and go through all of these different types of color harmonies. The first thing that I want you to do is to go ahead and change the middle color to the color that you have been using for your app. So right now we have been using this beautiful blue and I'll go ahead and change the middle color to that one. Now on the left side, we can go ahead and go through all of these color harmony rules. The first one is analogous. Analogous color scheme uses the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So as we can see, we have a blue right here, and analogous returns us the colors that are closer to it on the color wheel. The next one is monochromatic. Monochromatic uses the same color, so as we can see, it's the same color on one line, but all of these colors have different saturation levels. The next one is Triad color scheme. So if I go ahead and click on Triad, you'll see that Triad returns us colors that are evenly spaced on the color wheel. So it will return us 5 colors that are evenly spaced across the entire color wheel. The next one is complementary color. So if I go ahead and hit complementary, you'll see that these colors are on the opposite side of the color wheel. So complementary returns us the colors that are complementary to each other or on the opposite side of the color wheel. One thing you will notice here that blue is a cool color and orange or this yellow is a warm color. This is what complementary really means. It gives you the opposite of your current color. Next, we have split complementary. Split complementary is a variation of complementary color scheme. In addition to the base color, it uses 2 colors adjacent to its complement. So if you remember from complementary, we had a color opposite to our original color. Now, if you go ahead and click on split complementary, it will give us 2 analogous colors to our complementary color. These two. Next, we have double split complementary. So double split complementary is a variation of split complementary. If I go ahead and click on double split, you'll see that it gives us the base color, 2 colors that are adjacent to its complement, and again 2 colors that are adjacent to our base color. Next, we have the square color scheme. It uses 2 pairs of complementary colors. You can skip compound because you really won't use compound all that much. And finally, we have shades. So shades returns us different shades or different hues of the same color. We also have the custom option, so you can go ahead and select whatever color you want using the custom option. Now, if you stuck with me during that demonstration, you must have heard 2 words that you may not know the meaning of: hue and saturation. There's also another word called value, and these 3 are very important to every designer. So I'll go ahead and try to explain what hue means, what value means, and what saturation means. So hue is the color in its natural state: blue, yellow, green, red, and so on, without any light or dark variation. Basically, colors that appear in the color wheel without any other light or shadow. Basically, hues are the colors that appear in the color wheel without any other light or shadow alterations. Value in color is the amount of light or darkness the color has. Nature, for instance, we see in everyday life in the morning and at night has some elements of a different color. Trees and mountains, for example, have lighter morning tones and darker tones as the day passes due to less light. We see things closer to light with white tones and other things in the background with dark tones. The value plays a significant role in UI design. We can get a good contrast if we use it well. If any color has the 100% value, it results in white color, and when the color has 0% value, it results in a black color. Saturation is the intensity of the color. When we saturate a color, we have more intense and vivid colors. When we desaturate a color, we have a dull color. Before you use saturation in your designs, you need to know what you're designing for, if it is for printing or for digital purposes. In printing material, we cannot use saturation because CMYK is used and there are limitations to the CMYK color gamut. But because the series is mainly focused on UI design and UI design is digital, we are going to stick to the RGB color scheme and we can use the saturation property. Now we can move on to the golden ratio or the 6, 3 and 1 rule. The principle of 60% plus 30% plus 10% is the best proportion to achieve color balance. We have to choose a dominant color which uses 60% of our screen space, a secondary color that uses 30%, and a final color that uses the remaining 10%. It can ease the eye of the user to move from one point to the next comfortably. Next, we can talk about shadows in UI. Shadows are never black. Shadow is the object's color tone shaded by the value tones. So if you look at this picture, you'll see that the shadow of the strawberry is not actually black. It's just a very, very dark red. The shadow of the blueberries is a very, very dark blue or a very, very dark red in some cases, but it's not black. Depending on the amount of light and darkness, you can see the amount of shadow. And one common mistake that most UI designers make is that they think that they need black color with a lower opacity to make a shadow. That is completely wrong. Try to use a natural color or the color of your object to make a shadow and use the opacity to bring down the shadow to make it look good. Now we can move on to colors in typography. Most of the UI is now either white or black nowadays. All your focus might go on into making the interface as minimal as possible. So typography is another important element. As you can see here, the color on the left side is completely black. The hex code for it is 000. And the one on the right looks almost black, but it's a very dark blue. This plays a major role when the interface is mostly white. After applying the same opacity to both texts, we can see the difference. Clearly, the result is different. One of them is gray, while the other one is sort of blue, sort of gray. Using text with a certain tone of a color will also have a noticeable impact on your UI. Like we can see in this example, the listing on the right blends in much better than the listing on the left. Now, you may go ahead and think that black and gray is bad. Well, that's not the case. People will usually use the phrase that with black, everything is cool. So it's up to the individual and up to the designer, also up to the company. But when you see color, try to use it and better contrast and harmony can be achieved through it. So now we can go back to our payments app, and if we go with a certain green color or a certain blue color, we can see that it looks much better than the brown that we showed earlier. Because we need to show strong emotion for money and for growth in this app, using a green or a blue color is much better for the financial world for both men and women, and also it gives us an advantage in the case that both men and women like the blue and the green much more than they like the brown. The outcome of today's discussion is that colors in UI design is a big thing, and it's not as simple as it may seem to pick a color and just go ahead and make a design out of it. Try to choose the colors that you use in UI design based on the preference of your audience, maybe the preference of your target demographic, and also take into account other and smaller things like the images that are being used in your entire UI design. Maybe you can create a better harmony by using a color that you picked from an image rather than just using the plain old black and white. But also remember that using the plain old black and white is never a bad thing.